Welcome back to The Honest Media. I'm Tom Pappert. Hillary Clinton likes to remind us she's a woman. There's videos on YouTube that are about 5 minutes long of Hillary Clinton reminding the world she's a woman. These housewives are going to vote for me because I'm a woman. Well, you know, one of my major accomplishments is that I'm a woman. Never mind what Trump says about playing the woman card a little strong. Let's see what happened south of the border, not in Mexico, a little further south, in Brazil, when they elected their first woman president, who by and large won on the woman card. For those who don't know, I'll just read the headline. New president of Brazil, Michel Temer, signals more conservative shift. That's right. If you haven't gathered, the first woman president of Brazil is no longer the woman president of Brazil. She was removed from power in what some call a coup, but anyone with a brain calls a legal proceeding. Of course, when the left doesn't get its way, it stomps its feet and calls whatever happens unjust, undemocratic, wrong. Anyone who lives in Brazil can tell you it went through the proper proceedings. This is not a coup. This is a proper removal of a woman who was destroying the Brazilian economy. And what happens when the first woman president from Brazil is removed? If you've been following South American politics, this should be all you need to know. Venezuela's left-wing government condemns impeachments of Brazil's Rousseff as a farcical coup and accuses imperial forces of overthrowing her as South America rejects socialism, from thedailymail.com. For those who don't know, Venezuela is turning into a classic example of what happens with democratic socialism. What presidential candidate, if you can still call him that when he can't win, Bernie Sanders proposes. Dilma was the ideological counterpart to Venezuela. She tried to institute the policies of Venezuela and Brazil, the same policies that Hillary Clinton is now adopting in order to make a case for Bernie Sanders supporters to move over to her camp. Democratic socialism, in a good scenario, results in a president being removed after a couple years in office for failing to respond to the needs of the people and create immense social strife. In a bad scenario, when the government and media has a stranglehold, well, just look at Venezuela, where hospitals have newborns dying every day of the week, where people have to wait over a year to get follow-up surgeries after severe head trauma leaves them missing part of a skull. This is where Bernie Sanders wants to lead us, and this is where Hillary Clinton is being forced to lead us because Bernie's taken her so far to the left. People go to Trump, according to him and his rallies, go to Trump and say, is Hillary serious about this stuff? Hedge fund managers, Wall Street, the people who Hillary loves the most. Is she serious about this? Is she telling the truth? And Trump says, well, maybe. She's being pushed to the left by Bernie. Now, personally, I'm of the opinion that Hillary will do whatever it takes to get elected. And if that means adopting liberal policies or socialist policies, she'll go there. I have no doubt. But let's focus on this New York Times piece. New president of Brazil, Michel Temer, signals more conservative shift. The new Brazilian president's first pick for science manager was a creationist. He chose a soybean tycoon who has deforested, of course, this is the New York Times, who has deforested large tracts of the Amazon rainforest to be his agriculture minister. And he is the first leader in decades. Oh, this is going to break hearts. It's going to cripple the country, I know. And he is the first leader in decades to have no women in his cabinet. Well, if you want to know what happens when you start including people in your cabinet based on gender, look at Justin Trudeau in Canada, where, you know, if you don't fight the fires, then you win. The government of President Michel Temer, the 75-year-old lawyer who took the helm of Brazil after Dilma Rousseff was suspended by the Senate to face an impeachment trial, could cause a significant shift to the political right in Latin America's largest, and I'm adding this, not the article, most economically impressive country. For those who don't know, the Brazil already had one run-in with socialism. It took a long time to recover. In the 90s, they began adopting more free market policies, and by and large, things improved. There is some disagreement over how much the middle class grew, but it's been said that the middle class grew many times over. Now, granted, when the left got into power, they changed the statistics. They made it so if you make the equivalent of $5,000 a year, you're in the middle class. You know, if Obama and Hillary could do that, we'd have a very large and growing middle class. Tamer's government is starting out well. Silas Malafia, a television evangelist and author of best-selling books like How to Defeat Satan's Strategies, wrote on Twitter. This is who the New York Times gives us. None of the many, many, many conservatives in Brazil and south of the border who recognize the need for an end to socialist policies. They want to tie us down to evangelism, which is not a bad thing. When Christianity was prevalent in society, we didn't have most of the problems we have today. But that's not all conservatives are, especially not the people who removed this woman from power. The people who removed her because she was destroying the country. He'll be able to sweep away the ideology of pathological leftists. Mr. Malafia, added of a conservative lawmaker whom Mr. Tamer chose as education minister. For more than a decade, Brazil has been an anchor of leftist politics in the region, less strident than the governments in countries like Venezuela and Cuba. These are who we compare Brazil to. This is what we want in America. This is where Bernie Sanders would take us, looking to Cuba as an ideological ally. But openly supportive of them and committed to its own platform of reducing inequality. Now, if you reduce inequality in finance, you make everybody poor. Look at the Soviet Union if you want more examples. But parts of Latin America are now drifting away from the left. After election in neighboring countries like Argentina and Paraguay, Mr. Tamer seems to be embracing a more conservative disposition for his government as well, with the country's business establishment pressuring him to privatize state-controlled companies and cut public spending. This is where we're at, folks. This is the New York Times. Not outright socialism, privatizing national industries like oil. This is considered conservative now. This is considered conservative. It's the free market that created America, the free market that gave us the most economic prosperity in human history, is now being hailed as, well, that's a conservative principle. I've got news. Classical liberals loved the free market. Thomas Jefferson loved the free market. Only socialists, outright socialists like Bernie Sanders and where Hillary is going, are the ones who say, oh my good Lord, you can't think of letting people make decisions, because they want the government to make the decisions. And we'll be right back after these messages.